Greetings, welcome back to HM Live. It has been a tremendous week. We've just had orientation of all of the new district home missions directors, and I'm blessed as always to have just the cream of the crop in almost every district. So it was a wonderful time. I believe that Christmas of Christ in many districts will be absolutely a record-setting year. So good things are happening on that front. The extension of home missions out into the districts, very positive. We've also spent some time this year in just training directors at the sectional level. We want to see this idea, this concept of planting brand new churches, daughter churches, preaching points, get to every pastor in North America. As some of you know, I've been just kind of doing a series, inserting it at various moments, which is the way a lot of series work, including the ones that you teach and preach at your local church. Just inserting this as time permitted, talking with you about surviving the maze of church planting. And I'm using this analogy to say don't get stuck, don't get hung in certain areas and things that are just inconsequential and places that you don't have to get hung. And I'm not going to take a long time with this particular HM Live or with this particular session, because I think the very title itself makes it self-explanatory. I want to talk to you about what happens when you make the mistake of rushing people into leadership. Now, I have been in the spot where that I desperately needed help, and I thought I needed help so bad that just about anybody would do. And I found myself putting people into roles, putting people on the platform, involving people, allowing their talents to be used where that I really did not know those people very well. So I'm the fellow who can certainly speak from experience about the danger and the mistake of rushing people into leadership. I'll never forget, as the pastor of a fledgling church, having someone visit and then make that their home church, had a wee bit of talent, had been a preacher, perhaps a pastor in some other settings. And the next thing I knew, one Sunday we were having church, and his observation as he was preparing to sing was that what this church needs is this young man, pointing back to me, and it needs me. And of course, we probably did need him in some regards, but it wasn't in the light that he thought we needed him, and it was kind of an interesting moment, an interesting season. We tend to move people into roles of responsibility or being on the platform without really even knowing what we've got. Paul to Timothy, in speaking of what we do with preachers, said, lay hands suddenly on no man. He was talking about that laying on of hands of someone in ordination and commissioning them to a specific role of Christian leadership. I think the same principle should be applied in every home missionary's life, and that is that don't lay hands suddenly on any man. When you give a person in your church a title, you empower them, you put them in a position where the others look to them as someone who should be an example. Fellas, you better ask, do you know who it is that you are empowering? Paul also uses the term of novices, that we would not empower novices. When we give people these roles who are novices and we don't know what they are, we don't know their history, we don't know their background, we don't know some of the choices they've made in life, we put ourselves in a position of being harmed by the various things that they would do. Give people serving roles. Give people serving roles before you give them leadership roles. Listen, if that person is not faithful to turn the lights out on Sunday, they're not going to do very good leading your Sunday school ministry. So just give them a small thing to do and then let it progressively build. Lay hands suddenly on no man in this role of leadership. rushing people into leadership, it just comes back to bite people. It's a spot where I see people get stuck, and they've got this group of people. It has grown to 30 or 40. It could grow beyond that, but because of the people they have in leadership who would be threatened if they had additional capable people come in, these people who are in leadership expel any new people who would like to come into the church. This happens when there is no process, when there is no process for a home missionary to develop people and to move people along. Take this very slow. The wrong people can really hurt your long-term strategy. It's better to just let them wash on through, get on down the road. You can be busy with winning and developing the type of people that you need to win and develop. This particularly happens when you have people from other churches who you would like to think have some understanding of godliness and righteousness. They come in to your new church, they come into your young church, and you're so excited to see somebody who can help you develop new converts. And you just watch those people's spirit. And a lot of times these folks who moved from another church, there is a reason they have moved, and they're not what you want in your congregation, laying the foundation of what you're going to develop for the future. You see, I think what we do, and in some senses it's good, but we tend to see potential in people, and we think to ourselves, now if that person would really get serious about their relationship with God, they can make an impact. The truth of the matter is they got to get serious with God and serious about God before we begin to put them into these roles. Something I'm sold on, you've heard me say it over and over again, is the benefit of using some discipleship class mechanism that step by step moves people toward growth. The Bible says that promotion comes from the Lord. Let me ask you a question, and I know some folks aren't going to give the answer that I want them to give, but would you rather have an A-team musician who is lacking in character, or would you rather have a B-team musician who is solid in character and in righteousness? Now, I actually know pastors and home missionaries, sadly, who are willing to overlook almost any flaw in order to have talent on the platform. And fellas, I'm telling you now, that just won't work for the long-term health and strength of your building a local church. That is simply not sustainable. You're going to get stuck. You're going to get into a spot where people are going to say, well, look at what they're doing, and they're a leader in our church. Don't promote people if they don't have a character base. It's better to do without them. It's better to do without a lot of things than to have the wrong person in various positions. When you give a person a position, I'm about to wrap up with this. When you give a person a position, it will scar you significantly as a home missionary when you have to ask them to give up that position. Okay? It's easy to promote people. It's easy to give people titles. It's easy to give people jobs. It's tough to fire folks around the church. So just be careful handing out the titles to start with. How do you get people engaged and involved? And again, you know I'm very adamant that we have to do that. We use them or we lose them. Why don't you ask them this way? You know, this weekend, would you help me with? And then give them a specific assignment, a specific responsibility, always with that particular term fit in there. This weekend, would you help me? Then you fill in the blank. It could be to be an usher. It could be to be on your praise team for the weekend, whatever the case would be. And early on, when you're doing this, don't use the same people repetitively. Give some other people a chance. A lot of times home missionaries